Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. I am Peter Hansen, joined by Sugar Shane Caldwell up in Detroit. And Shane, we just finished the PGA podcast this evening, and Coach was mentioning how you're sort of right in the outskirts of the PGA Tour this week. So, big question here as we get ready for our KBO podcast tonight is when the PGA tees off tomorrow morning. Are you going to be over there watching the tournament, or are you going to be home studying the KBO and watching the games and continuing the grind in the KBO?
I'm probably at the stick with KBO, even though that's a little farther away in Korea, where Detroit's around the corner. Yeah, I tried to get into the club there and over by Detroit, and apparently you need some kind of membership to get in there. They're pretty fancy at that club.
Yeah.
So yeah, they didn't accept me without a membership there, and I don't really have any connections there. So yep, so I'm not going to be able to give the on the ground report. I will tell you that it's really hot for Michigan right now. Up in the 90s for us is very hot, so it should be pretty fast conditions on the course there. So that could play a factor into it.
Yeah, they're going to need it. It's a big, long course. We think the big hitters are going to really have an advantage. Bryson DeChambeau is going to bring his arsenal up there and just try to hit his 350-yard drives and make it a smaller course. So we invite everybody to go listen to that PGA podcast. It's up now. Our podcasts are available wherever you can find them: iTunes, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, as we get ready for KBO here, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to one of our listeners who gave us a wonderful comment on YouTube. His name is Stay Inspired, and he said that listening to one of our KBO podcasts here recently, he was able to place second in a contest on FanDuel, win $700. And we love that. I mean, it's a perfect name, Stay Inspired. That's what inspires us. We're here to, try to help everybody, sort through this challenging information every single day to, create the best lineup in the KBO.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was good for him to give us a shout out, and that he took all the information from our podcast to be able to formulate his own lineup and take it down like that. That's awesome. So.
Yeah, we love that.
Very exciting. Yeah, that particular podcast had a lot of good comments on it. A lot of people really enjoyed that one. So
we really appreciate those comments. We'd love for you to subscribe on YouTube, get the notification every day when this podcast posts. We cover every single KBO slate. They play 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. We do a podcast on KBO 6 days a week. Right now we're doing 2 PGA shows a week. When the U.S. sports start up, we'll be covering MLB, NBA, and NFL. And we invite you all to come check out our website if you want to become a member. We're having a great time with our members as well. Shout out to Jay Marax. He had a nice win last night on DraftKings and KBO, top 10 finisher. He's the member who joined us as a guest a couple weeks back. We had a great time with him on the podcast. This is what it's all about, Shane, is helping folks build winning lineups. So in terms of memberships, we've got a great situation right now. If you get a month membership, that's going to take you all the way until August 30th. So you get all this content on KBO and PGA, and then the timing on your membership really kicks in July 30th when the NBA starts. So it's a wonderful opportunity for folks to join us, and just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com, and sign up for one of those memberships. So that's the story there. While you're there, actually, you can take advantage of some offers from our sponsors, mybookie.ag. On our website, you'll see the link. You can sign up there and use the promo code Coach Talk, get a 50% deposit up to $1,000 and a $25 free play. So that's terrific. And then if you're into horse racing, TVG is one of our sponsors. That's where the world watches and wagers on horse racing. And we have a $300 risk-free bet that you can get exclusively through our website. So check that out at dfscoachtalk.com. And speaking of mybookie.ag, they've got the lines for us here tonight in the KBO. So let's start with game one here, Shane. It's Hanwha at Kia. Kia is the home favorite, minus 158, over under 9.5, which is sort of right in the middle in this slate. We've got 3 9.5s, 1 8.5, and 1 11.5. So starting with this matchup, it is the terrible Hanwha team that's 12-37. Another heartbreaking loss last night. They lost 4-3. Kia came back in the ninth and won it with a walk-off. But now they've got Warwick Sopold on the mound. ERA of only 3.5. He's got a winning record, so that's where they're going to look to try to stem the tide here. They've had a real rough streak the last month. But what do you think about Sopold going up against Kia here? It's an interesting matchup to start off the slate.
Yeah, normally you wouldn't take a Hanwha pitcher typically in most slates. They're not going to get a lot of run support, probably not going to get the win. But this slate is tricky for pitchers. There's not a lot of standout pitchers and aces in this slate. So because of that, you do have to consider Warwick Sopold. He's probably not going to be a top target for us. But Kia is not necessarily a really intimidating lineup. They haven't been really hot lately, so he could have a good outing. And Sopold is actually, his last three outings has been very solid. So he's very consistent right now. He's not overwhelming, but he's been pretty safe actually for Hanwha. And Hanwha batting lineup has been playing a little better ever since they kind of shook things up and got a couple guys back here. And made a few trades and that type of thing. So they're actually not too bad. So they can put up some runs and possibly give him the win. So I think he's a good under the radar play, but he probably won't be in the top 2 to 3 plays, but he'll be in the mix because of the situation with the pitchers in the slate for Sopold. What do you think about Sopold? Are you feeling the same way about him?
Yeah, I mean, those 3 straight solid outings that he's had have been against Doosan, the Dinos, and KT Wiz, which are 3 teams with some excellent lefty bats.
Exactly.
Probably the 3 of the best 4 or 5 if you add LG and Kia. And the thing is, lefties are only hitting 252 against them this season. So, that's a really good profile to try to deal with Kia with Tucker and Cha in the middle of that lineup. Now Tucker's really been slumping, but Cha has been solid. So there's just the overlap there is enough to probably have me shy away from that matchup and, just sort of hope for an average game where there's no real standout performance. He's not a huge strikeout guy. He's not really overpowering. So it's an all right play, but there are some pitchers here later in the slate that I like better. And then for the other matchup, Minwoo Lee for Kia, he's had 3 straight down outings. But this is Hanwha. It's not a huge, powerful lineup. Any bats there that you're interested in?
Yeah, I like the shortstop, Sung Jin Oh. He's going to typically bat 2 or 3 in the lineup there. So he's at the top of the lineup. He went 3 for 4 last night. And I don't know if he's quite a good value on DraftKings at $3,900, but on FanDuel for $6, if you're trying to get a super low value play who's batting at the top of the lineup and who's playing pretty good right now in a good pitching matchup, he's a good guy to look at. Like I said, it's really hard to target the Hanwha bats, but they have played better lately, so you can take a couple one-offs there, being that they're pretty low price. And they also have Tae Kyun Kim. He typically will bat cleanup. He's okay. And then Yu-Won Jung is also the three hitter as well, who's decent. He's a little bit more expensive on DraftKings, so $4,300. So that top of the order for Hanwha is not bad, but they're not going to be a primary target. But if you were doing multiple lineups, it wouldn't be bad to throw those guys in there at low ownership.
Yeah, Yu-Won Jung is my favorite there of the ones you mentioned. I've been playing him recently. He's really solid. Nice flexibility, second base, third base, eligible on DraftKings. Nice left-handed bat. I like him. So he'll be a one-off for me in a few lineups. All right, let's go to game 2. This is the KT Wiz visiting the LG Twins. LG and their pitcher Casey Kelly are the favorites here on mybookie.ag. Minus 181 favorites, over under 9.5. Casey Kelly is in a bit of a rough patch, 5 straight games where he's given up at least 1 homer. And the KT bats have been hot. They were the big stack for us last night. We said on our podcast our 2 favorite stacks were KT and Doosan, and that was really the best combination last night. So what do you think about that matchup tonight with these hot KT sticks against Casey Kelly?
This game looks like this is a game you would, if you were going to bet the over/under, I would bet the over on it. I think that there's going to be quite a bit of scoring in this game. It's a sneaky blow-up spot here. I like KT Wiz. Jay Hwang has been really hot lately, and then Mel Rojas Jr. and Bako Kang, one of my favorite players. Bako Kang is really good against right-handers. He's just mashing. He's definitely got a lot of power, and Casey Kelly gave up a home run the last 5 games he's pitched. So there's definitely potential for some upside there. Probably not going to stack the KT Wiz, but I like taking at least a one-off with those guys. And then when we get on the LG side, I really like them going up against Byung Wook Cho. He's unproven, hasn't really pitched much, and he hasn't really faced any good lineups this year. And also, if they get to him and he gets pulled, the KT Wiz bullpen is the worst bullpen in the KBO at a 6.21 ERA. So the LG Twins are probably one of my favorite stacks on this lineup, on this entire slate, just because you got a lot of good left-handed bats up against these inexperienced pitcher who I think is going to give up a lot of hits and probably some home runs as well. So I like Ji Hwan Oh at the top. He's typically batting second. He's a shortstop. I like Hyun So Kim. He's really good against righties. He's another lefty. And then I also like the typically batting DH is Cha. He's just coming back from an injury, but I think he might be due for a breakout game. And he's a right-hander, but he bats good against righties. I'm still a little bit reluctant with Roberto Ramos, even though he's traditionally been one of the best power hitters in this league. He's just been in such a slump. This could be a spot where he breaks out of it, but I'm not really willing to pay up for him in this spot. Maybe on DraftKings you could, because he seems to be a little more reasonable on DraftKings typically. But FanDuel, he's pretty expensive comparatively.
Yeah, I agree with you on that breakdown completely. If you're going to stack LG, I like 1 through 4, all those lefties against Joe, who, as you mentioned, he's had 2 straight decent starts, but they've been against SK and Hanwha, exactly. the bottom feeders in the league. So this is going to be the real matchup for him against these lefties. So the bigger stack, I would go all the way from 1 through 4 and include Seed Lee at the top, 3,300 outfielder.
Oh, yeah.
Ramos has been cold. He's 5 for his last 30, so he's not going to be in my first build. For a multiple lineup situation, certainly I would get exposure to him because I think this is probably one of my 3 favorite stacks.
Yeah, I like the leadoff hitter, Chung Wong Lee. I like him typically better on DraftKings. He's pretty reasonable, 3,300. He's not really a power guy. A lot of times on FanDuel, you want to try to get some power upside, maybe home run upside. You don't really need that typically as much on DraftKings. So, yeah, he's reasonably priced there at 3,300, leading off as a lefty. I just think they're gonna roll. I think LG's going to really crush the over here in this game. And I think the KT Wiz can get to Casey Kelly as well. So this game is it's sneaky. It's a good sneaky game to attack.
Yeah, I like the over there as well. Yep. All right, let's go to game 3 here. The middle one on the slate, it is Lotte at the Dinos, and this one has the smallest over-under, 8.5. Dinos are favored, -129, but it seems like Lotte has the edge in the starting pitching here. It's Dan Straley. He's the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings at 10,000. His ERA is only 2.43. The Dinos pitcher, his ERA is over 5, 5.6. I was watching his last outing. He didn't escape the 5th inning against Doosan. He gave up 5 walks. He's just kind of nibbling, not overpowering at all. Just sort of a 3/4 delivery with a lot of off-speed stuff. So what are your thoughts on this one? Any interest in stacking either of the hitters here?
Well, you notice we haven't talked about pitchers a lot, right? Because we've already went through 2 games. Because, like I said, at the opening, this is a tricky slate for pitchers. I do have to mention Dan Straley. He's expensive. $28 on FanDuel and $10,000 on DraftKings, but you have to consider him just because he does have by far the highest strikeout rate on the slate, 26% strikeout rate. It is a really tough matchup against the NC Dinos, but I think he's a good enough pitcher where he can go deep into the game. and potentially still get pretty good strikeout upside. But the question is can he hold down the NC Dinos lineup? They are pretty tough there. But he is good enough where he could have a good outing against him, but it makes you nervous when you're paying up that much for him. But any pitcher on this slate, though, you could break down that way and say, well, you're not really, there's no guaranteed ace pitcher here. So I do like Dan Straley, though. Overall, I would still play him against the Dinos, but you're paying a lot for him. And then I do the pitcher for the Dinos, the Jae-Hak Lee, doesn't really give up a lot of home runs, but he does typically give up a lot of hits, a lot of guys on base. So I do like Jungwoo Jeon, typically batting second for Lotte here, and I do like Dixon Machado as well. He's both those guys are really good against right-handers, even though they're right-handed bats. And then Asiat Son is the left-hand leadoff hitter, who's also really hot right now, and again a good matchup. So the only reason I didn't like Daejeon Lee as much is because he's a little bit more dependent on the power shots, home runs when he has those blow-up games. And this pitcher tends to kind of pick you apart and not really give up a lot of home runs. That trend could change, but that's just the way he pitches. He kind of pitches around the home runs a little more. So that's kind of my breakdown. I'm not really taking a lot of Dinos bats like we normally would, just because they're pretty expensive and they're going against Straley, who I think could potentially shut them down.
Yeah, he really could. Righties are only hitting 153 against Straley. So he's been superb there. So I'm not really going to look at those righties. You could look at Sungbum Na or Jin Hyuk No if you want to get a little bit different. I don't think they're going to be as highly owned as they usually are. But I also prefer the Lotte bats here. Asapsyan has been hitting around 400 against righties. He's only 3,600 on DraftKings. I like Daejeon as well. And Daejeon Lee, 2 days ago he had 3 for 6 with 2 homers. So if Jae-Hak Lee hangs one of those breaking balls, he could certainly take him deep.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next game, and I'm excited about this one. It's Doosan visiting Kiwoom, and their bats really got hot last night. Coach was all over that stack, and it really paid off. And they are minus 138. The over-under is 11.5. And I wasn't quite as big on Doosan last night, but I really am tonight. They're facing Young Gun Joe, who has an ERA of almost 7, WHIP of almost 2. He's given up 4 home runs in only 18 innings. His last 4 outings, the longest he's lasted is 2 outs in the 3rd inning, 3 2/3. So he's just getting hit around early and often. Doesn't have any control over his breaking ball. And when you have a righty like that facing Doosan, it's just, giddy up. So I like the Doosan hitters really from 1 to 8. I mean, you can stack them really any which way. I think is a strong approach. I mean, righties are hitting 317 against this righty. Lefties hitting 294 with 3 homers. Small sample size. I think Doosan will add to that tonight. Fernandez 5 for 5 yesterday with a homer. J-Il-O has been really hot lately. He's only 4,100. Our boy Jay Cha is up to 3,300, but still in a good spot. J1O. Now there's the second baseman who just came back from injury. He's 2,400. We gave him out to our members last night. Well, really, it was this morning. It was about 5 a.m. We saw that he was batting 7th, back in the lineup. He's been out, and he's just too good to be priced at 2,400. And sure enough, he had 2 doubles and 5 RBI. And I'll go back to him again today. The real challenge with stacking Doosan is the position eligibility. You get really crowded at first base and second base. Fernandez and Jay Cha are eligible at first and second. J-Il-O is only eligible at first, and J1O is only eligible at second. So you can only get 2 of those guys in there at once. I mean, I'd be willing to stack all 4. So you may need to go to FanDuel to get a bigger stack there. But I'm going to have a lot of exposure to these bats.
Yeah, no, it's this is a tricky one for me, because I was talking to you earlier about, hey, is it a strategy to fade Doosan tonight? And that is really risky to fade them because they are going to be the chalk of all chalks. I mean, I'm sorry, but they're coming off just a monster game where they just absolutely mashed. How many runs did they put up last night?
14.
Do you remember? 14 runs.
14.
I mean, they were just out. The whole lineup just crushed. And the thing is, my concern with Doosan, I love this. I love the stack. I love everything you said, and I completely understand it. My concern is this pitcher hasn't went really that deep into games. It typically, like after 3 innings or so, he typically gets pulled. So I feel like, he's only in there for a few innings, 3, maybe 4 innings. And then they get to the bullpen, which Kiwoom's bullpen is a little bit better, is probably better than a starting pitcher. They can match up specifically. Kiwoom's bullpen is the best in the league at 4.32 ERA. And that doesn't mean that Doosan can't get to their bullpen, but it's a little tougher matchup towards the end of the game there. It's not as easy as some of these bullpen matchups. So that's kind of the argument for fading Doosan, even though they're in a juicy matchup and they're completely on fire right now and they have all kinds of really, really talented bats here. So that's if you really wanted to. Again, that's probably going to be multiple lineups, GPP, and you're trying to get that low ownership, that ultimate pivot play. But if you're talking cash or a little bit smaller tournaments, then I think you're going to have some exposure to Doosan, which is basically where we landed after we had our conversation here. So yeah, I think I definitely like Fernandez. I like JLO batting third. He's very good. And then, like you said, J1O is definitely a guy that went off, and he's batting at the typically 7th, but he's $7 on FanDuel. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how long does the Kiwoom pitcher, young Gung Joe, how long does he stay in the game, and how is their matchup against the bullpen? That's gonna be what's happening here. And what ownership are these Doosan guys? Are we talking 60-70% ownership? For a lot of these guys, but there's a lot of them too, that could spread it out.
That's the thing. I didn't even mention Jae-Hwan Kim at 5,600.
Oh, yeah.
He's very explosive. He hasn't done quite as much the last few days here, and they're finally pricing up K. Her, the third baseman, 3,300. K. Park at the top of the order is excellent.
Like I said, the problem is everyone's on these guys though.
Yeah,
it's not like they're a secret, like Little League.
No, this is not a secret. No.
Yeah, everyone that is following KBO is on these guys. So
we can't pretend to be whispering here about Doosan as if nobody's listening.
No, exactly.
The secret is out. These guys are phenomenal.
So can you tell me about this Doosan pitcher here, because he's kind of on my radar? What's your breakdown on this pitcher?
This one is going to be a little bit more under the radar. I don't think folks are quite as much on this one, but I really like this young pitcher. He's 25. He's listed, if you missed the show the other day before his last outing, he's listed at like 5'10", 150, but he's got a much bigger arm than that. He's got a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. He throws a breaking ball with a lot of sink. It's a 12-6 curveball that's about 71 miles an hour usually. So there's a really big differential between the fastball and the breaking ball. It really keeps batters off balance. And lefties are only hitting 133 against him this year. Righties at 280, but in the last 2 games against LG and the Dinos, 2 excellent hitting teams, 11 and 1/3 innings, only 2 earned runs. So he's been excellent. ERA under 3, and he's a nice price on DraftKings, only 7,300. Good price on FanDuel, excellent price on FanDuel, only $21. So he's going up against Kiwoom, which is a terrific team, but because of the matchups we've discussed so far, he's really jumping out at me as a value play, and I'm going to have a lot of exposure to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's only $21 on FanDuel, so you can get up to all those big bats that you like. And then the 7,300 on DraftKings, and you got to play 2 pitchers on DraftKings, and there's not exactly a huge pool of pitchers here, but I think he's one of the guys. He has one of the highest strikeout rates besides Straley. His 22% strikeout rate, and Kiwoom, even though they are a very powerful lineup, has one of the highest strikeout rates in the entire league at 19.2%. And this is a little bit more of a pitcher's park. It's it's one of the better parks for pitchers. So I think that's definitely the Doosan pitcher is a viable play, and this guy seems definitely very talented, and he's went up against tough matchups already. So definitely that's a guy that you have to put in the mix here.
All right. Excellent. Well, Sugar Shane, before we get to Game 5 here, I'll just mention social media real quickly. You can find Shane on Twitter at DET Sports Shane. I am at Language Olympic. You can find all of us on Instagram at DFS _ Coach Talk. Shane runs the Instagram for us. And you can find us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. And Joe Sarvati, the fellow affectionately known as Coach, you can find him on Twitter at JOESARVADI. So we'd love to connect with you there. All right, Shane, game 5, it is the SK Wyverns visiting the Samsung Lions. Samsung coming off a strong performance from David Buchanan last night, 7-1 victory. They are the minus 172 favorites tonight with an over-under of 9.5, according to mybookie.ag. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
You know, Samsung's been heating up. I've been talking about that for a few weeks. You probably remember me a few weeks ago saying, hey, Samsung's not as easy as a matchup as they used to be, right? And so they are heating up where SK is kind of trending down. So you got to kind of like Samsung here. It's kind of hard to find a lot of guys that you absolutely love, but I do like Ja Woo-koo, typically batting second. He's a lefty going up against Jian-Wook Lee for the Wyverns, who's really not that great of a pitcher. He has a lower ERA, but I'm not really concerned about him that much. I don't think that the pitcher's really that great. So I do like Ja Woo-koo, a lefty going up against a righty here, and he's $10 on FanDuel, $4,800 on DraftKings. So that's probably one of my favorite plays for Samsung. They got some pretty decent players. They do also have this that guy that's more recently been into the lineup, Seong-Gung Lee, and he's been a lot of times batting cleanup. So if you wanted like a one-off like value play, he's $2,800 on DraftKings and $5 on FanDuel. He has hit a couple home runs. He went cold the last few games, but he's the type of guy that has upside at a super low price. And if he's batting cleanup, you really can't get a guy that's cleanup in a pretty decent matchup at that price typically. So he's a good guy if you wanted a low ownership kind of GPP plays. Seong-Gung Lee. What do you think about him?
I like him. Yeah, he's batting .378. Those 2 homers you mentioned, small sample size. And I build multiple lineups. So I'll build at least one lineup with Koo and Seong-Gung Lee in it, a little mini stack. I also like Hyman Park, the lefty. He's been dropped down the order a little bit, but at 3,000, a guy with 4 homers, batting .285, he's a solid investment. You know, this pitcher for SK, I think he is solid, especially just his current form. Last time out, 6 innings against LG, didn't give up any hits. So this one, could be a bit of a pitcher's duel. I'm not going to have much exposure to the Samsung bats, but I also like the pitcher on the other side, Tai-In-Won, 7,700 on DraftKings. It's a pitcher with an ERA under 3. Lefties hitting .242 against him. Righties .258. Strong outing last time out, and he's facing up against SK. They're 14-35. They really just don't have much pop in that lineup, other than Jung Cha and Romack. So if he can navigate them, I like his chances to pay off value.
Yeah, he's not as high as strikeout rate, so not as much upside there. But SK does strike out quite a bit as well, so that could certainly help him out. Over 19% strikeout rate for SK here. And yeah, you have to worry about a little bit about Jung Cha and Romack. But other than that, yeah, not an intimidating lineup here. So you can definitely see him roll. And I think the chances of him getting a win here are pretty good. For one, it's weird because he has a really low ERA, but he does give up home runs. But he typically just gives up like 1 home run a game, but he doesn't really give up much else. It seems like that's kind of how he's been trending. Like he'll give up a long ball, but he's just solid other than that. But yeah, they haven't done a lot of damage against him in recent matchups. So I think that he is one of the better pitchers in the slate, being that there's not a ton of good pitchers in the slate as well. So.
That's right. Yeah, I'm certainly hoping they don't do any damage against him tonight because I'll have him a lot. So that completes our 5-game slate. If you like what you've heard, we'd love to have you come in, join us as members. What we do in Discord every night with the KBO is we provide a FanDuel lineup to our members, and we provide a player pool on DraftKings. And whenever the slate is, we're in there 30 to 45 minutes before the lineup lock, checking the lineups, confirming them, checking the weather, making pivots. And so tomorrow morning, it'll be 5:30 a.m. Eastern. So plenty of time to join us as a member. Like I said, the monthly membership right now will take you all the way through August. So great opportunity for you to try out DFS Coach Talk. And we want to thank our sponsors one more time, mybookie.ag and TVG, where the world watches and wagers on horse racing. Coach's favorite charity is mambaon3.org, so we always mention that, MAMBAONTHREE.org. Shane, any final words of wisdom here on this Wednesday evening?
I'll just say it's a great time to join DFS Coach Talk. I mean, we've definitely been winning a lot. We're doing a ton of research in the KBO, so you can play some KBO and some PGA. You're doing a lot of research on that, and then you can roll right into late July where we put in a ton of work on NBA. We're very good at NBA, and we've also been doing a lot of research on NFL, so then you'll be ready for that, and also we'll be playing MLB. So it's a great time to join DFS Coach Talk because you can play these sports that we have going on right now that we're really locked in on. But we've also done a ton of prep work for the other sports. So we're ahead of the game when those other sports start, which means you want to jump on board with DFS Coach Talk for lineups and expert advice that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else with our advantage that we have with all the work we put in during this lockdown period. So I just want to mention that definitely check us out. Come check out our website and everything, and go on Instagram if you want to look at some of our winning lineups just in the KBO. You can click on that DFS wins highlight bar there, and it'll take you like through a slideshow of all the wins we've had, and we've done a really good job with it, even though and we've been waking up every night at 4 or 5 in the morning, crunching the lineups, making pivots for our members, and helping them win money. So definitely Definitely, I think this is another slate where you have to take a couple deep layers deeper to look at it. It's a pretty tricky slate here, and it'd be interesting to see how Doosan goes, how the chalk is going to hit tonight, if it's going to hit or not. And I think we're looking forward to it, and we'll also make some pivots in the middle of the night as well. When we see the lineups come out, we can give up additional advice there.
Absolutely. So we look forward to helping folks with that. We thank you all for joining us. Tomorrow we'll be back for another KBO show. Coach and I will be on that, and we look forward to you joining us there. So on behalf of Sugar Shane Caldwell and the coach, Joe Sarvati, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow on DFS Coach Talk.